6:05 PM on December 9th. All right.
All right.
We want to handle the guests first?
Yeah, let's handle the guests first. So long story short, and I'm sure you read it, one of the items in my proposal is the lease of the bushwhacker, brush mower. So with that information, I brought in Angela Flabat and Ken Spofford from, Angela, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Angela Flabat. I'm the CEO of Spafford Leasing Associates. We are an equipment finance company. We've been in business for 35 years, and we do a lot of municipal leasing with local towns in Massachusetts, Connecticut. I had reached out to Nate with an email, and he was interested, and I did provide a proposal. So we are here to just have, answer any questions you would have in regards to leasing. My understanding is that the town has never leased before, and it really is a beneficial tool for your town for capital acquisitions, where you only have so much you can budget for the year, and where you can go in with an equipment lease and help with that budgeting by just having an annual payment every year for 7 years or 5 years, whatever the term is, can help you get those capital items a lot easier than trying to factor in a purchase or even a loan. So that's basically what we're here for. And then my business partner, Ken Spafford, is on the call as well.
Yeah, and I've been with the company since 1989, probably, well, definitely all of those 35 years. But so I've been in the leasing business for over 40 years for sure, from the time I got out of college. But we've done a lot of municipal leases over the years, done a lot of commercial leases, and done a lot of towns and cities, and basically there's been a lot of activity, certainly within the past year with towns and cities, and Angela and I have leased, municipal lease financed ambulances and fire truck and various types of equipment. With regards to the equipment you're getting, which is a push mower, which is high duty, it's a almost sounds like a land clearing machine. But what we did last year is equivalent to that. The city of Springfield, we had approximately $1.1 million lease that had there were $50,000 mowers that were used for their 2 golf courses. So we've leased all sorts of equipment to towns and cities. We look forward to getting your business as well.
So what happens at the end of the lease?
You basically retain ownership of the equipment. You'd make in the case of the quote I provided Nate, you'd make your 7 annual payments, and that's it. It's paid for in full. Your obligation is satisfied, and you own the equipment.
And is the equipment new at the beginning of the lease?
Yes. Whatever you would go out and negotiate. I don't know if I have the proposal in front of me from your vendor, but you would go out and negotiate your price with your vendor of your choice, and then we would step in at that point and contact the vendor and have documentation issued to the town to sign for the lease, and then we would have payment go right to the vendor for the equipment.
And I got a question in regards to that. So with regards to the push mower, have you already selected vendor? And-
No, so what this is we're going through our annual process. Everything we're talking about would potentially be part of the capital improvement plan for FY '26, the upcoming fiscal year beginning July 1st. So right now, we're going through these, this is an appointed board with representatives of the planning board, finance committee, and residents, all serving to determine best use of taxpayer and one-time revenues in regards to capital funding. We have a capital plan like most communities year over year, but unfortunately, the town of Hubbardston is a small rural community, so the money doesn't go as far as usual. The quotation that we
Right.
have from the company is a state certified company that we could do business with without having to go through all the rigors of procurement due to their status as a preferred vendor with the state, but it is not our end all be all chosen vendor for this because the project isn't even approved, never mind the specifics.
Right.
Most of the
A
time,
couple
things
things.
that make it through the capital improvement planning committee and onto the town meeting floor go through, but there are always chances for things to be voted down.
Right. One thing we want to, Angela mentioned it briefly. One thing we want to point out is the municipal lease is an operating expense. Actually, it's in the lease itself. So, in other words, this is the capital planning committee. The lease language, let me read this. So the lease language is very specific that the contract payment shall constitute a current expense of your and shall not be indebtedness. So municipal leases are not indebtedness at all because they have what we call annual non-appropriation clauses. So it's subject to annual appropriation. So if you're looking to buy, let's say, a $200,000 machine and your payments are $36,000 a year, the only thing you need to appropriate is $36,000 as opposed to appropriating the entire $200,000.
Yeah, nope,
Um,
that's the understanding from our side as well.
Now, the other thing we had to get involved in with an ambulance and actually with the city of Springfield, with their mowers, they actually signed a lease somewhere between 11 months ahead of time. The money was put into escrow, but they knew what they wanted to get in order to protect themselves against price increases. Because if they had waited until 8 months down the road, the $1.1 million could have very easily been $1.3 million. So we've done that with a couple of our towns and cities where they executed, I mean, the time frame is on this, but they executed the lease in order to protect themselves with price increases. I don't know if that's still occurring. I mean, I suspect it is.
So
But
the
that's the only other
difference
point.
between a city like Springfield and a small municipal body like Hubbardston is where our legislative authority falls. The city's going to be able to do that because their legislative authority is the city council, who meets likely bi-weekly. The town meeting
Yeah.
that would be needed to approve the lease contract and the lease money, the next time they're meeting, unless a special town meeting is called, is in June. So that's not something
Okay.
that we would be able to do just because of the governmental structure. Not to state that the
Okay.
appetite would be there to do it anyway, but because of our
Right.
town structure of government and town meeting being the legislative body, we would have to go to town meeting. The select board, our executive authority, much like Mayor Sarno, is not just able to say, hey, let's do this, that's what we're doing.
Right, it actually went through town council, right. I understand. What is the push mower being used for? Is it being used to clear land?
So it's not a push mower. It's like a brush whacker. So it goes all along the side of the roads. When you have 90 miles of rural roads, it's very important to be able to clear off the sides of those roads to assist in power line management, traffic management, and general cleanliness, and just kind of agricultural management. So this is pretty much a giant hair trimmer on a boom stand that you drive down the
Yeah.
street and just cause utter destruction.
Yep. It certainly can do that.
Yeah. When I was on the Gardner City Council, Gardner unfortunately had a DPW guy that got a little ahead of himself and destroyed a bunch of blueberry bushes. It was, you would have thought it was the biggest to do under the sun. But
Oops.
so I guess my question for Angela, which she answers, so there's no sort of cap in mileage, there's no cap in usage.
No.
Why are we utilizing the term lease then? Because a lease to me sounds like it would be like a rental, you lease your truck. You are paying the lease company owns the truck, you can utilize it up to a certain point, and if you don't pay, they come and take it back. I get
Right.
that if we don't pay, you come and take it back side of it, that's the same, it would be the same as if the town didn't pay their indebtedness, but where is your gain outside of?
It's like a finance. You use the term lease. It's a lease. The wording you could use is a municipal financing, but it's not a loan. So in other words, if you decided there is non-appropriation every year. You know, Ken is correct in that. But municipal finance like this lease, you hit the nail on the head. You just, that's how it works. You make your payments. There's no principal balance, so to speak, in there. A car lease, I've leased vehicles myself, is a whole different animal unto itself. You basically retain the title of the equipment the whole time. There's no residual, so it's not. Car leases, you have a buyout or a residual, if you will, on it. There's nothing like that. It's just a little bit of a different. We call it a lease. You can call it a financing. It's just unique in that applying to municipalities. It's a different type of situation, financing, if you will.
Because I do think the word lease in what we're talking about, it is a little bit confusing, but that's the terminology across the board. So
Yeah, I mean, right, Ken? Would you add to that it's?
Yeah, no, you explained it correctly, but it's also in the law. So for example, municipal leasing is in the federal tax law. And it's basically titled municipal lease. And it'd be the same with the state. I think Angela sent you the video on that with regards.
Yep.
So with regards to being a lease, a rental is different. A rental is something where you go out and rent something for a month, then they return it. Here you're leasing it for a year, subject to appropriation, and we're hoping you don't return it. But it's subject to annual appropriations. So basically what you're appropriating is an operating expense and not a capital expenditure. Because anything under a year is an operating expense. So basically equivalent to payroll,
Boom.
equivalent to supplies.
There it is. All right, that's what I was looking for. So this is not a 7-year contract. It is a string of 7 one-year contracts.
Exactly.
Right.
And the other thing is you get it's a federal and state tax exempt rate because of who you are, spelled out in the tax law. And the tax law favors small towns and cities. So a small town is in city in anywhere in the country per tax law is any town or city that doesn't issue more than $10 million in municipal bonds in the year in which the contract was executed.
We're just
And,
sneaking by, Ken. We're just sneaking by. No.
Heck, his
For as long
salary.
as that's not an issue.
But you know, I mean, we're at December 9th, right? So that we've got not too many days left before the end of the calendar year. So some of these big cities and towns plan on issuing, it could be 10, 20, 30, $40 million worth of bonds next year and 0 bonds this year. It's in their best interest to sign a lease between now and the end of the year because they're going to be considered a small town and city, and as a result, we'll be able to get a lower rate. It's all part of the tax law, federal tax law. But with regards to your town, in 40 years, it's non-appropriations, I think have only happened a couple times. Orange County, California has had one. I think Puerto Rico was a non-appropriation one year. I've seen a non-appropriation by a town or a city.
We wouldn't want to do
because
that.
a
So.
non-appropriation has- Yeah, no, I mean, a non-appropriation has to be literally due to a lack of funds. But it could happen, and it gives you flexibility.
Ken, may I ask a quick question? The annual lease payment that is marked in the document we received from Nate, I think there's an amount that is embedded in here. And Nate, and Ken, what I'm trying to understand here is that if these are, if this is now becomes, I mean, it's a 7-year lease, but my question is if it is really subject to a yearly, is it a yearly review this is subject to, or what is it? I'm trying to understand this better.
We would have to bring this up every year.
I'm sorry?
We would
Yeah,
have
it's
to bring
subject
this
to
up.
non-appropriation. In the lease document itself, it says non-appropriation. It's got a paragraph on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, it's subject to annual non-appropriation. So the town's got to appropriate that $36,000 every single year for 7 years.
Gotcha. And it stays fixed at that rate.
Yes, the rate does not change.
Oh, yeah.
The rate does not change, correct.
And based on the number that I'm seeing here, and just using a little calculator that I have here, I'm assuming that this is roughly about, what is it, 6.9%?
It's 7.818% is what I have quoted.
7.18?
Yes.
Yep.
That's with payments annually in advance. I mean, there's different ways we can run the numbers,
Sure.
in advance, arrears.
And it's because it's advanced, that's where I think I come with the difference. Okay, gotcha. Instead of it being an annual
Yes, that would
monthly
make,
payment,
that would put, right.
Yeah. if it were monthly.
And your
payment,
first
okay.
payment goes against principal, right? Your first payment is a principal payment.
And we could do, I mean, I just quoted it this way for ease of understanding, but we could tailor, I mean, we've done municipal leases where there's monthly payments, we've done quarterly payments, semi-annual payments, whatever, you know, we just did a town in Connecticut that did semi-annual payments. That's how they wanted to do it. So, you know, whatever, we could do however you guys wanted to do it, structure it.
But because we can't sign this in the 30-day time period that you lock in the rate, so the rate would be flexible at the time we actually need the lease, correct?
Yes, we would have to re-quote you. If we wouldn't be executing this till, if you say June, then we would, have to go out and, get our, quote you, whatever the rate would be at that time. Which could work in your favor, because I think maybe rates may drop by then. Who knows?
Or not.
Talking about it, that would be in your favor. Rates are predicted to drop. But nobody knows what's gonna be happening with price increases, so you got one.
Yeah.
You're gonna have both things going on over the course of the next year.
Yeah.
And all of our funding comes from a bank, a small community bank. So basically, Spafford Leasing is on the documents that you get, but we fund all these with a community bank. And when we talk about putting money into escrow or whatever, if that needed to be done, it's an escrow at our community bank. That's the only, banks have been our sole funding source. That specialize in municipal leasing themselves, which there aren't too many of them. There's 4,200 banks to spec out. Only 100 of them do municipal leasing. If I might ask, who's your bank for the town?
Mary, who's our bank? We have Unibank, we have Fidelity, we have a couple of accounts with the GFA out of Gardner, mostly Unibank.
Okay.
We change banks for rates sometimes.
Why not?
Yeah. So so as Angela indicated, you can benefit by a lower rate environment. But, I mean, do those machines go up in price? I mean, I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe the machine will go down in price.
They never go down.
It's gonna have foreign parts, no doubt.
So you're kind of fighting against that. You may get an improved interest rate, and whatever those machines go up in price. It depends on when you need it too. That's going to be the key, is when you actually need the machine.
Should this go through the capital planning committee and then the select board and be on the town meeting warrant, I would likely have you quote me on June 1st, so that I could have a locked in number for town meeting uses that we would be able to utilize by the first day of the new fiscal year to move forward. But that is
Okay.
some hurdles from here. I think this is the most financially prudent way, but there are a couple approval steps between where we stand right now and the end of the line.
Okay.
Okay.
And do you know what the delivery time? If you ordered the machine today or reordered it, do you know what the delivery time is?
Not a clue.
I mean, we've gone as long as a year.
Yeah,
Right
it
before
would
things
be,
get delivered.
it wouldn't be a year. But I think they're oddly specific tools, apparatus.
Yeah.
All right, any questions further for Spafford Leasing before we let them go? And Angela, Ken, I appreciate you taking the time to come out here today.
No
Yeah.
problem. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anything comes up, Nate, in the meantime, just feel free to reach out if you have any
Absolutely.
questions or anything comes up for questions after.
All right, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good night.
So if we were to approve this, that would mean every year we're automatically, whatever the dollar amount is, comes out of the capital plan.
Yes.
Or does it come out of operating?
what you did there.
Did you?
This is the space that kind of makes financial sense, because the operating budget is tighter. But you are the capital improvement planning committee. I am simply making a proposal. If the proposal then did not make it past the capital improvement planning committee, I think I would be facing an uphill battle to get that any other way, because it would be in direct defiance of the capital improvement planning committee, so. Could we find a way to fit something like this into the operating budget? Maybe. It would have to take some squeezing.
I guess
Just
the-
asking.
Go ahead. I guess the concern though is, will we have the money?
We will have to have the
Yeah,
money.
one way or another.
We won't want a default.
But it's interesting, she said we maintain the title.
Yep.
Till they foreclose.
Yeah, typically though, when you do a lease or a loan or anything,
You don't own the
they
title.
hold the title.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
Okay. I have.
Neither
I'm all set,
I
but-
nor legal counsel nor an AI robot could find anything fundamentally wrong with this. And I took some deep dives into the Massachusetts general law and watched the video and talked to Angela pretty at length, and seems like what it is. And we would never be able to, it kind of, where the benefit comes is where the two sides meet. It's too small of an amount of money to really go out and take out a loan for and take on debt, but it's also likely going to continue to be pushed further and further and further down the road due to being almost the entirety of the amount we have set aside for capital in one fiscal year.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I see the point of the problem here is that we're committing that we're gonna be basically saying, you know, almost $37,000 a year out of whatever we have in capital is going to be pre-allocated over the next this year plus the next 6 years, right off the bat. And I can make the argument that that's not a bad thing. But I also can make the argument that, you know, it prevents us I mean, if we don't perchance have those monies in the future, where does it put us? We would maybe have to then, you know, put that into the operating budget somehow and make it happen. One hybrid approach that I would like to maybe think of is what if we, and I don't know if this can even be done, can capital fund the first year and can we explore that it be then part of the operating budget thereafter for the next 6 years, therefore relieving the town from the operating budget for, you know, that it wouldn't start until the next fiscal year, which is 2026.
I wouldn't want to speak to what Travis would be willing to do within the confines of his operating budget at a department level. If
Yeah.
that made it into a request at a department level, it would certainly be something that I would consider.
Yeah,
And then with my consideration and my proposal, the select board and the finance committee would then consider it, and it would be, if considered favorably, would be brought forth to town meeting for ultimate funding. So it's not a no, but that answer felt very political.
Well, but that would also leave us with, okay, we'd have to wait the town meeting, and if the town meeting says no, then we're not funding it, period.
free cash. Not a big number.
It's not a big number. That's why if it was 100,000, then I wouldn't have felt comfortable kind of committing to it. But in a town like Hubbardston, being as rural as we are, the last one of these got, I believe, 27 years. So there will be a good sized ROI on the back end.
Yeah. I mean, let me also say that over the years that I at least have been as part of the capital, the CIPC, any proposals that our group has presented, I don't remember anything ever being voted against during the town meeting.
No. And I don't think 36 is a heavy lift for something looking back. This is a relatively low year, free
Yeah.
cash in capital expenditure wise.
Yeah.
Relatively low year. A record low year.
No, it's not, we were lower last year.
Yeah.
You were only higher for those couple of years because of the extra money coming in because of COVID.
Oh, but yeah, we would brought big bucks.
This
in.
is right
Okay.
around where we've been traditionally.
Did marijuana give us any money?
No.
We will open smoke.
The select board is still working on that, where letters have been sent.
Okay.
You note there has not been a renewal of certain agreements. So we'll see how that goes over the next couple of months. All right, so Mr. Chair, with your permission, I will move on to presenting
Yep.
the proposal in its entirety. You guys are the lucky ones. Although all three of you have been here all 3 years that I have now presented this, this time I have kept the low-hanging fruit, things that you know as a committee, out of this presentation and just gave you the raw facts. There will still be a public version of this presentation presented to the select board. So if you miss the low-hanging fruit, real definition-based presentation, you can either check last year's or go and read it yourself. So, but with that, I will begin the presentation of the FY26 to FY30 Hubbardston Capital Improvement Plan Town Administrator's Proposal. Our objectives here today are to review the proposed FY26, sorry, I wrote FY25, FY26 through 2030 Capital Improvement Plan, discuss key projects and funding for said Capital Improvement Plan, evaluate strategic funding opportunities and grant potentials, and align with Hubbardston's financial management and strategic objectives. With that, my proposed single year, as you have in front of you, Francois, you'll have to figure it out on your own, because you're virtual.
Is it the same that you sent to us?
Exactly the same.
Okay.
Yep, are the annual road improvement for $100,000. That is, you guys would know better than I, but I believe this is our 5th year funding this at this level. 5th or 6th. Travis would know, but it has gone a long way. It has added tremendously to the town's ability to do additional roads. The plan as written would have to be altered should this not be part of the capital plan. Any questions on that?
Quick question, when did we start, doing the allocation of the $100,000, each fiscal year for road maintenance? I thought this is a more recent, right? It's
My
like
guess
3
is
years now?
5 fiscal years. I think this is the 5th one.
This is the fifth one?
I
Okay.
don't recall.
And can we quantify the impact that it has had on our town road system over that 5 years? I think it's an important element because I think this has been a real positive piece for the town. I mean, everybody still complains about the roads, but, if it worked for this year, it would be even in worse shape, right?
Absolutely. Think about it. In 5 years, after this year, that'll be $500,000 in
Exactly.
additional road funding. It goes a long way. Like, everybody wants their road done ASAP, but
Yeah. I think this is a real important one to, accentuate, especially when we go to town meeting. Because we've got a
Absolutely.
lot of pushback in the past about, funding and this and the other thing, but this is an immediate benefit that the town folks get.
yes. Up next is the annual grant planning services. I took it from the $7,500 request down to $5,000. This year, I'm hoping that working with Capital Strategic Solutions for grant application and potentially management will end up being very prosperous. I have let them know very bluntly that we need to see early success in our current relationship to be able to continue this year after year. I know there are some great success stories in other communities, like right next door, not specifically with this company, but Gardner, their $60,000 investment has turned around to be, I believe, $7 or $8 million in grants received. That they did have a couple of ready-to-go projects that were primed for funding, but there are opportunities out there. Any further questions on this? Yes,
Why
sir.
the reduction to 5,000 if you?
Math. I was aiming for 300,000. I ended up going under it, and can't say I didn't deduct my own requests. The SCBA replacement, this would be year number 2. Brought it down this year to $10,000 because I do firmly believe that there will be grant funding opportunities as we get closer to this project, but not funding it to a certain level would be foolish because it is such an important part of our public safety. The annual technological infrastructure support, as I've told you in the past, had this not come year after year, the town would be in dire straits in terms of hardware. That was computers, that is servers, it's everything. The only tech monies that are in the operating budget are operational licenses software. So this is really the lifeblood of the town's tech operations, which becomes more important year after year, and we are making investments into going further. Like in the next year, because of special town meeting votes, you'll see us go completely online with all of our permits and applications and potentially a few other directions as well. So this will just be another positive. We do have a 5-year tech schedule that was in your Google Drive.
Nate, can I ask a quick question on this here? And this is something that I think I've mentioned in the past. Have we at all, do we have any of our technology currently based on the cloud? Or do we have all on physical servers?
Everything that is allowed to be on the cloud is on the cloud. There is a certain level of legal protections that we have to have. We have to have internal servers for some of the things that the police hold on to. We have to have in-building servers for some of the financial documents that we hold as a community. Anything that can be held in a Google Drive or elsewhere is. Our phone systems are done through the cloud. Our Laserfish through Kyocera is a cloud program. Anything that we can hold, like I personally find the amount municipalities spend on server space as redundant, but other community officials in other communities and even here may not be as forward-thinking on a tech level as I am. And
Yeah.
I also may not fully grasp safety precautions of cloud versus not cloud, especially I do very much understand and value servers for financial measures, police and public safety, but the run-of-the-mill public records documents are kept in a Google Drive here.
Okay, so, I mean, the reason I was asking is this is truly only for items that are required to be on a physical server that are managed,
If
by
it's a
right now.
server, like a lot of times it's not servers being purchased, it's the computers being rotated for office
Mhm.
staff, it's,
Yep, no, that's fine. Thank you.
yeah. Culvert and Bridge Assessment Management Plan, this is the first year of a 5-year plan to assess 150 culverts and 12 bridges for prioritizing replacements. I wanted to get this started because I do believe there is grant funding here. A lot of the opportunities for larger grant funding are expecting you to know what you're working towards. So
And next year that jumps up to 55,000.
I'm hoping that that is not a true number. I'm hoping that I can utilize the beginning funding of this to get a grant for the rest. But the way it was written, it had to be put in there that way to be fair to the request. Should that not come to fruition, I would likely shift around some of the latter years and keep pushing the 55 down until we could come up with something. But I would want to continue this project because of its importance and because of the MVP programs that are steadily increasing the amount of legislation and the amount of necessary kind of requirements that are being made for stormwater management and that kind of stuff. I really am not looking forward to the day we have to have that conversation as a town, because I don't think the residents of Hubbardston are going to take stormwater management tax very well.
No, I don't think so.
But we'll hold that off until we can. The residents of Rutland were not very fond of it.
Well, especially when so much of it is for the DCR, for the quad.
Yeah, and that's a conversation that we will hopefully put off for some time, but
Until we get to 5,000 people. We're pretty close.
very. Any questions on that?
But this is another thing, is once we start, it'd be foolish to stop.
Yep.
Well, the 55 is the field work where they go out and measure and
Yeah.
survey and locate and assess in the field. They could break that down into pieces if we had to do
Yeah.
it that way, yeah.
Okay.
The DPW brush mower replacement, we talked about this. My proposal is to do the lease, not necessarily through that lease company. I would procure it, but I do not believe that we will be able to, in good faith, fund a $210,000 brush mower in the confines of the capital plan anytime in the next couple of years.
7 years.
There will always be a competing priority that will just edge it out. Any questions there?
No,
Storm brine applicator, our storm brine system is going very well. They wanna put a applicator on a second truck.
$18,007.
Yeah. Travis is specific. They've already, the ROI on that whole program has made its money back already, the initial investment. It is creating much safer streets. I've been told several times, not a ton, but at least 10 times, that when you get to Hubbardston, it's like hitting a wall and just suddenly you're on pavement. So that's been very positive. Travis and his guys are doing a great job out there and doing to the best of their ability, doing more with less. The fire truck replacement for a pickup truck, replace a 2007 Ford F-250 used for operations, plowing, and daily activities, $65,463. Any questions there? And
This will be replacing it with a new truck? Absolutely, like a 2025 model?
yes,
Okay.
we're at 2024. I'd have to go back and look at what exactly it was, but whatever the best
Okay.
deal on it is when he goes to buy it.
But again, this won't be till July.
Until July. Yeah. But they make a lot of F-250s.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
And then the final one on the 1 year is the Brigham Street Conceptual Design Plan. In order to qualify for a lot of these grants with the Mass DOT, Safe Streets, Shared Streets, you have to have conceptual design. We have conceptual design for High Street. I'm hoping to be able to get that funded in the next year. After that, we will need to have something to move on to, hoping that it would be Brigham Street. It's on our prioritization
I
plan.
wonder what.
No.
What's the what's the date that or the year that we're looking for to redo Brigham Street from the town center down towards the bridge? Do you know?
It's in the plan. I don't have the plan in front of me.
Yeah, that's okay. I thought it was coming up soon, that's why I was asking.
Planning wise, it likely is, but funding wise, it's a very expensive project.
Yeah, it is.
So.
Yeah.
Any questions on the single year proposal?
Now, the water storage tank is okay for another year?
You can suggest that we move it back and we'll put us,
I'm not, I'm just asking because it was moved, that, the reason, it was asked for.
I didn't wanna go over the $300,000 that I had suggested to you guys in the emails. We could, like 320 likely wouldn't break the bank, but
No, I'm not proposing we spend more, I'm just trying to understand.
Well, are we gonna be forced into it, I guess is
Right.
the question, right?
I don't think that is the project that they would force us into.
Oh, great, there's something else out there.
There are several, there's an expensive pavement project that is becoming increasingly more necessary. There is a odd mold remediation project that essentially involves creating a bubble over a whole basement that is going on. Yeah, there are a couple of projects over there. I'm hoping we can negotiate during the bylaw timeframe over the next year to increase the amount of money where the threshold kicks in from the school to the town. Right now it's $5,000, but it's been $5,000 for many, many years. $5,000 doesn't necessarily get you anywhere these days. Maybe it didn't even 20 years ago, but it made a lot more sense 20 years ago than it does today. They know that one of my main asks is going to be to increase that. We don't want to be ridiculous, but the number that I believe I started at was 20.
Yeah.
But that may be a little too high. Who knows? It'll be a conversation between the school committee, select board, and the representatives of the administration. Strategic funding opportunities. Fire Engine 2, this keeps getting pushed simply because of its price tag. It will eventually need to be a debt exclusion, but I would like to see it be a debt exclusion when we have room to fit it somewhere. Like we can't take hits on what we need and what we get just in the name of getting something. So I would like to see us either wait until we have the bay capacity to buy a used vehicle or something that is more in line with the needs of the community versus shortchange ourselves to get something now. So I know that the fire chief would disagree with me on that, but we had it on the capital improvement plan for last year, and when it came down to putting a debt exclusion forward or not, the decision to not do it was made.
Yep.
Library ADA compliant elevator, I split that up over 3 years, fiscal FY 27, 28, 29, in an attempt to get a grant for that. We actually just last week received a $41,000 grant to do a ADA plan for the community. It will be our first ADA plan. I very much appreciate how it lined up with the purchase of 48 Gardner Road, but some other additional projects that will likely be considered will be this type of project. I am hoping that we will get the project done in partnership with CMRPC, which is the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, not our planning commission, which is a whole another story. Within the next year, and then be able to apply for the next grants, which are project-specific grants. High Street Corridor reconstruction, I am applying for every grant that comes open with the state for the funding of that road. We will continue to do so for the next year or two before attempting to shift my thought process. Generator installation is $100,000. It would be to put a fully functioning generator on the Hubbardson Center School to get it to a point where it could be an emergency shelter. Right now, the generator runs the refrigeration and about half of the lights, so it does not meet the qualifications to be a full-blown emergency shelter. That is something that Judy, our emergency management director, and Ray Farron from FEMA are working diligently towards. I'm hoping they find success in the next year or two. This will be in addition to a eventual grant sought to put a generator of a similar size on 48 Gardner Road, but I didn't want to put too much 48 Gardner Road things on the capital plan right now due to the serious investment that the town just made into it. Booster water pumps, this is a similar project with the water tank, all stemming from a letter from the DEP early last year. This is something I'm going to be prioritizing in my legislative correspondence to the state legislature and seeking funding for any time we can. Our grant consultant is already aware of this necessity and have been talking about it. The paving project that I spoke about earlier, this, I would love to fund it to the tune of $150,000 in one fell swoop, but that's a lot of money, especially for pavement, so maybe if we can either find grant funding or break it up over a number of years or work with the school. Speaking of the school, boiler replacement 2, we are currently working towards the final replacement of boiler number 1, which is on order and should be here and installed in the spring. Library basement remodel is a decently large-scale project to renovate the basement of the library for library purposes when the town offices are out of there. that is, I'm hoping can be fully funded from CPA funding, grant funding, historical funding, just different opportunities that the town or the library trustees will run into. Skate park, same conversation for the next two as we've had over the last few years. If the Parks Commission can come to me to then come to you guys stating, we applied for the following: this grant, this grant, this grant, did or did not get it, at that point I would be more willing to consider proposed funding at my level. But for right now, there has been no other applications, and I want there to be. So I will work with them over the next year and send some grant application and grant prospects their way, but for now, I think it's at a stalemate in that they need to apply for grants. Jesse, the new chair, seems more apt to want to put in the legwork than previous chairs, but we'll see. But that's my suggestion. Main Street lighting, same way. I've been already working on putting in grants every time I see one come up. It's just a very beautification level project.
Aesthetic.
It's a very aesthetic project, so it's just unfortunately never gonna rise to need. Certainly a want, it would certainly be nice to have, but town-owned land feasibility study, that was a grant thought even when I wrote it. I would love to be able to have a more concrete plan in place on what we plan on looking into auctioning off, what could be utilized for commercial development, what could be utilized in different ways, what should be taken into conservation that's not, open space, and that would be wonderful to, they taught me well. That would be great to have. I don't see that ever being something that we would fund outside of the capacity of a grant. Same with the following, the kind of creation of a better, not better, a more centralized and accessible area for community events. Right now, the town center is lovely for what it is, but when we try to do different events there, it is a difficult terrain. It would be challenging for someone with a disability to get out there. It is challenging to do things that require more than one plug. And there's this not a great space over in that area, in such a beautiful area, to do that type of event. It's considerably down the road, but it's something that I did want to start having more of a conversation about over the next few years. But fiscal management goals, well, any questions on the strategic proposals?
Nope.
All right. Maintain 6% of operating budget for capital projects, keep annual debt service under 5%, it's well under 5%, even with the new $1.5 million. Ensure reserves for fiscal stability, capitalization fund at 1%, we're at 1.6 right now, even with spending a little bit, and over 5% for the general stabilization as well. Key considerations for the next 5 years: grants, green communities, MassWorks, FEMA, anything. Phased project execution was a high level priority for me this year. I'm sure you could see that in both the 1 year and the strategic proposal, and community input is important. It's kind of one of the pillars of how I perform as a municipal professional. Next steps, finalize recommendations for select board and finance committee, prepare for spring 2025 town meeting. The floor is yours, and that is my proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair, thank you to the members, I appreciate you.
Thank you. Any comments?
I think this is a solid proposal, the ones that you put up in terms of the numbers. It hits pretty much, the way I'm looking at it, it hits the major points that we're looking for.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen the presented one-year recommendation of the town administrator for $292,470, understanding that we're proposing a 7-year lease on equipment.
I second that motion.
All right, any discussion? None? All in favor?
Steiger, aye?
Murray, aye.
Reed, aye.
Great, thank you very much, thank you for your trust, and thank you for your investment in the community.
Thank you.
We don't have any meeting minutes.
Right. We did have one from the first meeting.
We'll put something together in the next couple months to meet, and there's usually some sort of small change, and I do, in the future, I didn't feel, and I'm gonna be completely honest, I'll say this on the record, I didn't feel lovely not getting the capital improvement committee's recommendations on some of the items that I brought forth to special town meeting. So, with that, in the future, should proposals like that come forward, I would like to call a special meeting of this board to get more understanding of that, because those type of proposals, those type of allocations do have a direct impact on the capital plan.
Understood.
So I'd like to, if there are proposals ahead of annual, to bring them to this board, because it is essentially altering the capital plan.
Yep,
So-
I agree.
So with that, I will bring the minutes forward that I do have at that point, because I recorded the first 2 meetings and had transcribed, and this one will be relatively simple to write up. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you for
Anything else?
making this.
Move to adjourn.
You have a
I second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye,
Steiger.
non-debatable.
Thank
Meeting
you, and
adjourned
stay
at
dry.
Chris loves to say.